Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Stephanie. This video is my worst books of 2018, books that I DNF'd and gave 1 star to. As I said, this is my worst list. The list of books that just did not do it for me at all whatsoever in 2018. I have 15 books to go over with you guys today. I got my wine because, of course, I kind of need it. When I'm gonna, like, trash books. It's just easier if I liquefy myself. Also, do not take offense to any of these. If these are your favorite books. Not my it's my opinion. These are my opinion of these books when I try to read them. And also, I'm going to be going over these in chronological order. So as I read them, this is how I'm going to give them to you. I'll give you which I gave it. Either I gave it a 1 star or I gave it a DNF. And I'll sort of go over some of the reasons why I DNF some of these books and why I gave them 1 stars, if I can remember. But normally, if there is a 1 star or a DNF, they're books that I'm not going back to, like, ever. And I let them go out of my mind. Not sure if this video is going to be going up before or after you guys hear my stats video. But if it does go up before, spoiler alert, I read 365 books last year. So these 15 really is a drop in the bucket of books. I didn't have time. I worked my butt off to get those 365 books read, so yeah. And if it's not up before my actual stats video go up, hey, yay! I read 365 books last year. So let's just get to all these horrible books, in my opinion. So the first book that I read last year that I DNF'd was The Princess Diaries by Meg Cabot. Now, I absolutely adore the movies The Princess Diary with Anne Hathaway in them. Absolutely love them. And she actually narrates this book because that's how I listened to it. Or that's how I read it, was I listened to it on audiobook and she narrates. And I was like, oh, come on. It was the content. It was the actual content that I absolutely hated. I hated in the book that Mia was like 12 or 13 years old or 14, something like that. Something random that didn't fit with the movie. In the movie, she's like 16, about to turn 17. She's getting her license. She's learning to drive. And in the book, she lives in New York, I want to say. And in the movie, they live in San Francisco, which is just beautiful. And I loved it. And whew, she was a little brat when it came to her dad. I loved that they killed him off in the movie and made her sort of miss him and get told by her, you know, queen grandmother that she was going to be a princess. I love that aspect. Whereas in the book, she doesn't. She gets revealed it by her dad. I'm like, oh, she's a little brat. But regardless, I will continue to love the movies, but that book will not get read ever again. The next book that I 1-starred, this is the first book that I 1-starred last year, was Sex Fantasy by Sophia Foster-Dimino. And this was a graphic novel. It made no damn sense. Like, absolutely no sense whatsoever. As a matter of fact, did I send that back? I hope I sent that back. I can't remember if I sent it back or not. I don't know. But, yes, I did send that bitch back. Gone. Bye-bye. The next book that I DNF'd was Bulletproof. Bulletproof number 4 by Jenna Galicki. I was actually received this book as an ARC. And this is a male-male romance, rocker romance. And this one just did not work for me. Like, at all. There was a lot of gay slang that was in this book that I remember, and I appreciated it in the first book, I want to say, maybe in the series that I read, or maybe it was book number 2 that I read, and then I went back and read number 1, and then read number 3. Regardless, I actually appreciated those two or three other books that I read by her. This one just did not work for me, and I was like, ooh, this is just bad. This is bad. I'm not going to waste any more time on it. DNF. The next book that I DNF'd or gave a 1-star to was 1984 by George Orwell. And I don't care if this is a classic or not, this is shit. It was boring as shit. Boring. 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 Horrible. That's all I'm going to say about that one. Next book that I DNF'd was Beauty Queens by Libba Bray. Now, I have since heard that this could actually be a good story if I was to read it, but the narration, which is done by Libba Bray, so you would think that she would have, you know, the cues and the timing and things like that. You know, nope, 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 nope. And if her sarcasm and sense of humor is like this in all her other books, I don't know that I'm going to like her writing. So, I'll give her another try, but for the most part, yeah, no, I think I got like maybe 10% into the narration. It was like, I can't. It's supposed to be about these girls that go on a plane ride. They're beauty queens, but then they crash and they get, it's like a cross between Survivor and they're beauty queens or something or another. It's supposed to be the premise. So I was like, oh yeah, this sounds like a good book. Not funny at all. The next book that I either DNF'd or 1-starred was Forever with Him, with Her, Billionaire number 6, by Ellen Dominick. And I gave this one 1 star. I read the rest of the series and it got to this book and I was like, what the fuck? Well, that made no sense. Like, no sense at all. At all. What is really going on? The storyline just sort of went blah. It just didn't go anywhere. It was the last book in the series of novellas, and it just didn't take me anywhere. And I was like, that was a waste of my time. I'm real mad right now. The next book that I read or DNF'd was Your Secret's Safe With Me by Rayne, and I actually DNF'd this book. Ugh. This one hurts me because I wanted to enjoy this book. This book was provided to me, or suggested to me that it was a Black author and that it was sort of an urban contemporary, you know, sort of story about, you know, Black people. And I was like, ooh, this is not a good showing. Not a good showing. There was way too much dialogue about how much things costed and about how big his dick was, the main character's, but he was biracial, so it was like, oh, his African fathers gave him this big dick and da-da-da-da-da. Oh, and by the way, this Coco Chanel jacket cost such and such and such and such and such, and she had her Prada shoes on and such and such and such and such. They cost this much. And I'm like, I don't need to know all that shit. What? Is that relevant to the story? No, it's not. Had to go. The next book that I DNF'd or 1-starred was Too Late by Colleen Hoover. I gave this book 1 star. I have talked about it in the past. This is a big dumpster fire piece of shit work, in my opinion. I absolutely hated this book. This book revolves around a young girl that is in college. She stays with this guy that's abusive to her because she wants to take care of her brother. And after I finished this fucking book and was super angry with it because it gave this opinion or gave this light of law enforcement undercover officers as being fucking idiots, I was like, come to find out, it was a word Wattpad, or it was not fan fiction, but it was released as chapters and then bundled together as a book, but there was no fucking editing. None whatsoever. None. No editing. It was like, what? I'm just going to throw it all together and say, here you go, world. What the fuck? It was horrible. Trash, trash, trash. Just, I mean, but then it is my opinion, because when I see a book that's written about law enforcement officers and you trash them or you make them out to be fucking idiots, it grinds my nerves. Grinds my nerves. Because you know what's really funny, right? Is that I was in the military, and a lot of people thought that military police officers were stupid, or they thought that infantrymen were stupid. They're the lowest of the low, blah, 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 this and that, right? So I happened to marry a recruiter. Not while we were in, but that was one of the jobs that he had. And, you know, surprisingly, to be an MP or military police officer in the military, or to be an infantryman, you gotta be freaking smart as shit. You got to be smart. You have to be smart. You have to be articulate. You have to be a people person and able to, you know, learn things. I mean, the people that turn into the SF guys or the Special Forces people, the Delta Force guys, the Delta Force operators, they have to be smart. They have so many requirements and knowledge-based built thing. So it irks my nerves when I see characters that are written as if they're fucking idiots. Oh, nothing grinds my nerves even more. And I went off on a tangent on that one, but that's how I feel about it. So the next book that I DNF'd or one-starred was I Hate Everything But You by Gabby Dunn and Allison Raskin. Now, this is probably the only one. Nope, there is another one on this list. But this one, I might actually try and read, because I did get a copy of it from my public library during a library book sale, and I have it. So it's all written in text messages. So when I was trying to listen to it as an audiobook, it didn't work very well. So I might actually try and read it. It's about two teen girls that are best friends, but then they go off to college and they have their sort of own lives going on. And I might actually try and pick this one up again. So this was a DNF, and I might try and go back to it. The next book was Fledgling by Octavia E. Butler. I actually one-starred this book. It was very painful to get through this book. This book is about an old, I guess you could say, vampire-ish sort of clan. And the young girl that isn't really young, she has a sort of 12-year-old appearance, I believe. But she's like 67 years old in vampire age, but she's known as a fledgling and a baby. She's just coming into her vampirism, and it was painful. I mean, it was almost, she's 67 years old, so in like terms of age, but they kept describing her in this quasi pedophilic sort of nature, the relationships that she had, and her feeding system dealt with sexual contact, and I was just like, oh, so painful, so painful. And then I went and researched it a little bit, and it's supposed to be a social commentary on slavery and things from back then, race, and, you know, the things that happened back then. And I'm just like, nope, not my cup of tea, not at all. The next book that I DNF'd or one-starred was Hardball by CD Reiss, and I actually gave this one, I DNF'd this one. It was so damn slow, and the narrators were horrible to my ear. I just wasn't feeling it. And I was using this book through a challenge, or doing it during a challenge, so I was like, nope, I'm not going to waste any more time on it. I have another book in my repertoire of TBR that I can pick from for this challenge. I'm just going to go ahead and go that one, DNF this one, and be done with it. This story follows a woman that helps, I want to say, she's a teacher, and she takes her kids to a baseball game. The baseball player, she's a huge fan of the baseball player, or her dad is a huge fan of the baseball player, or something like that. And one of her kids that are on the trip with her ends up stealing his lucky baseball mitt, and then they have to correspond back and forth, and it was just dry and boring as hell. DNF that. Next book that I DNF'd, and the other book that I might quite possibly go back to, is Enthrall, Enthrall #1 by Vanessa Fewings. And I DNF'd this one because the narration was horrible. Did not work well with my ears. I may actually try to read this book. I do have it in ebook form. I have the entire series in ebook form because my friends that like these type of books, as I like them, say that the book series is actually really good. So I may actually try and go back and read this one, like physically read this one. The next book that I DNF'd or 1-starred was Oh My Lord, Paranormal Dating #12 by Millie Tendon, and I DNF'd this one because this story just didn't make no fucking sense. Our two male shifters were best friends, and they were both dealing with issues in their clans. So one was a bear, and I think one was a lion, or a bear and a wolf. There was some combination. And then the female was a tiger, I think, or something like that. And she was having issues. They romanticized rape of, you know, female pride members. And I was like, oh, no, no, not doing it. And then the male narrator for there were 2 books in the series, but for this book was absolutely horrible. I hated them. They tried to add music to the audiobook, and I was like, nope. I'm done. Can't do it anymore. Just no, not doing it. But the rest of the series is pretty amazing. Just this, like, one book. Actually, there's 2 books, but this is one that I DNF'd and was like, no, I'm done. The next and almost final book that I DNF'd was The Hum and the Shiver, Tufa #1 by Alex Bledsoe. I gave this book 1 star. This was painful as well because once again we have a military member, and it almost was like the Jessica Lynch sort of story where she grew up in backwoods Tennessee, I believe it was, and then she gets injured and ambushed, and things happen while she's over in Iraq, Afghanistan. She gets captured for a little while. She gets sent home. She has injuries and things like that. Ooh. Now, I get that there are some backwoods communities that still exist, even in 2019. But this was just painful. Absolutely painful to read. Everything was overly sexualized. She was known as a slut in the town, and I just was like, no, 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 no. It was misogynistic, and it was like racist, and just couldn't do it. Could not. And then the final book that I DNF'd or 1-starred was The Proposal by Jasmine Guillory. This was a disappointing one because I loved The Wedding Date so very much by Jasmine, which was her debut novel. I had high hopes for this one, but this one just felt like the characters did not match up. So Carlos is the best friend to Drew from The Wedding Date, and we met him in that book, and I was like, oh, I would love to have Carlos' story, you know, get to know him a little bit better. And now we have Carlos' story, and I'm like, who is this guy, and why am I reading about him? He came off as a chauvinistic pig in my book, and I was just not feeling him. Nick and her issues with doubting herself and going back and forth with, do I want this man to help me even though I might seem weak and blah. I was like, girl, I'm gonna need you to stop self-deprecating. I think I said that right. Self-downing. We'll go with self-downing. Self-destroying yourself. Because just because you ask a guy, you notice that your door is ajar when you get home, or that something looks out of place, and you have your friend who happens to be a guy that's with you walk around the area with you, that doesn't make you weak. That actually makes you smart, for that matter. You could go walk around with him, but I mean, There were so many things about this that I was just like, that just doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. Why? So those are the books that I DNF'd. 1-starred, disappointed books, worst books on my 2018 list. Did you read any of those books? What did you think about them? Let's discuss down in the comments. I don't fault you if you like them. I just didn't. They weren't for me. You know, don't hate on me because I like to keep my own opinion, and I'm going to keep my own opinion on my books. That's just how it is. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, there is a feedback form down in the description box so you guys can help me improve my channel. Thank you for watching, and we will see you guys later.